Bionicle Legends 5 Inferno. Written by Greg Farshti. Recording by Luis Alarcón Ramos. Chapter 4. The Paraka were not amused. Their journey had been brought to an abrupt halt in a most disturbing way. 6 cylinders of stone had erupted from the staircase, trapping each of them in their own individual prison. The stone rapidly proved too smooth to climb and impervious to I-beams, brute strength, or Paraka weaponry. Although the cylinders were open at the top, Zaktan's attempt to fly out was met by a jolt of electricity sufficient to send him crashing back to Earth. All of the cylinders shared one feature in common. On the inside of each, at roughly waist level, was a stone latch. Just why it was there was a mystery, as there were no visible signs of a door.
"What's next?" grumbled Thok. "The walls close in, swarms of fireflies attack, the Shadowed One sings."
His answer didn't come from any of the other Paraka, but from an aged voice that boomed from all around them. Although none of the captives knew it, the voice belonged to the great being who had crafted the route to the Mask of Life. The words had been spoken thousands of years before. "Travelers, you now face another test," the voice said. "Only 2 types of beings can escape the cylinders in which you find yourselves. The completely selfless and the completely selfish. Behold the latches in your prison cells. If all of you raise your latches at the same time, then the cylinders will open, and you are free to proceed. All will be well, and all will have an equal chance to obtain the Mask of Life. But if one of you raises his latch before the others do, he and only he will be free to continue on his way, while all of his companions will be destroyed. You must decide." Zaktan immediately shouted,
"No one touch that latch!"
Thok pulled his hand back from the piece of stone as if he had been burned.
"All right, Zaktan, you don't have to yell. We're trapped, not deaf."
"Avak, have you found another way out of these cylinders?"
asked Zaktan.
"No, and if there's one thing I know, it's prison cells,"
Avak replied.
"It looks like the voice was telling the truth. It's all of us, or only one of us."
"Then I suppose we will have to work together,"
Hakan said, the words obviously disgusting him.
"Exactly, and quickly,"
Zaktan answered. He knew the more time his teammates had to think, the better the chance one of them would betray the rest. It had certainly crossed his mind, but going on alone would be madness.
"Partners are necessary so that future opponents will have someone to demolish while I escape," he reasoned. "Then at the count of 3, we all raise our latches at once," said Avak. "Are we agreed?"
Each of the Paraka said yes.
Zaktan wasn't sure which worried him more, that Hakan was the first to answer, or Vezok the last.
1, 2...
Suddenly, the floor opened up beneath all 6 Paraka. A powerful suction drew them down to a fate unknown.
As they slid through narrow stone channels, Radak could be heard shouting, "He lied! The voice lied!"
Their unexpected journey ended with a splash. The Paraka flew out the end of the passages and right into a large pool of liquid protodermis. They plunged far beneath it, but fortunately, its depth was great enough that they did not strike the bottom. When they broke the surface again, all of them were unharmed, at least for the moment.
"Radak!" Zaktan shouted in a rage. "You moron! Of course he lied! The whole thing was a trap for any team that could not trust each other. The second you raised that latch and tried to betray us, you doomed us all!"
"Don't blame Radak. Maybe he wasn't trying to cross us. Maybe he just can't count," commented Avak. He looked around. "And, hey, this isn't bad, as dooms go."
He had a point. The liquid protodermis was actually refreshing after the long climb down the stairs.
Granted, there didn't seem to be any easy way to get out of it.
The water filled the entire chamber, and the only exits were the passages the Paraka had slid down, entrances to which were on the ceiling high above. But the Paraka had escaped from worse traps in their time.
"We will discuss this later,"
Zaktan said, in a tone that left no doubt the conversation would not be a pleasant one for Radak.
"Let's get out of here."
Zaktan dissolved his body into a free-floating mass of protodites and began to rise into the air.
He had made it only a few feet above the water when slabs of stone started falling away from the walls all over the chamber.
The Paraka dove underwater as the rocks struck, sending huge splashes into the air. When the hail of rock was done, there were dozens and dozens of recessed slots exposed in the walls. There was a moment of uneasy silence. The Paraka returned to the surface, their eyes darting around to see what would happen next. They didn't have long to wait. Jets of white-hot flame erupted from each slot, forming fiery bars above the water. Zaktan yelled in pain and dropped back into the pool. Radak squinted at the bright glow. The air above the water was now a mass of fire, and the Paraka were caged just as surely as if they had been in a cell.
"Now what?"
said Avak.
"Maybe they aren't really there," suggested Thok. "Like Ernak."
"Let's throw Radak up there and find out,"
said Hakan.
"They are real enough,"
hissed Zaktan.
"I lost enough protodites to know that."
"Okay, so we stay in the water,"
said Vezok.
"until the flame jets run out of power."
Thok looked at his partner as if Vezok had just grown a second head.
"What happens to water when it's exposed to flame?"
In the old days, Vezok would have shot back the answer in an instant. Since he had been split into two beings, himself and Vezon, he had not been quite so swift. He paused for a moment, wondering if this might be a trick question, before saying,
"It boils."
"And so do we if we stay here," said Thok. "Or we could try climbing the walls to reach the exits and get fried. Take your pick."
The only answer came from the flame jets, which suddenly increased in power. Soon, the Paraka knew, they would be forced under the water, which would add drowning to their list of possible fates.
"That settles it," said Hakan. "Next time someone invites me to join a group, I'm saying no."
End of chapter 4.